Hi everyone, welcome to the Sports Countdown podcast. As you can see straight away, we don't have a guest this week, and there's a very simple explanation for that. It's because we're going to talk all things Neil Lennon and Celtic Football Club, and that's because our very own Declan Hughes is, a massive Celtic fan, season ticket holder for maybe 8 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, Declan, not a great time for Celtic, but this is your chance to vent your frustrations.
Yeah, I think it was inevitable that Neil would eventually go. Um, I still think it's a bit of a weird timing that it happened. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think there was numerous opportunities for the board to make the change earlier in the season, and then not to say it would have changed what's happened, but it would have probably gave us a little bit better chance to compete for the league. But yeah, timing's just really off for me. I guess the only thing I can really think of is like they're thinking about season ticket renewal forms coming out soon, and I think it would have been I don't think as many would have renewed this season coming up if Neil Lennon was still in charge. So maybe that was playing on their minds, but
Yeah.
just something really off with the timing, in my opinion.
So I just want to get right into it. Like your immediate reaction whenever he announced he was resigning, was that a bit of relief? I think, yeah, for most Celtic fans anyway.
Yeah, like I think as I said, it was probably like inevitable that it would happen, like either now or like at the end of the season. Because I said I don't think we could have continued with Neil going into next season. So relief, yeah, but then obviously it's kind of bittersweet because like Neil Lennon's a club legend, no matter which way you look
Mhm.
at it. I know like people say he's tarnished his reputation this season for not maybe walking away sooner, but the guy's been the guy's been at the club really since like I can remember watching Celtic, and then when he came the
Yeah,
manager as well. So kind of bittersweet, but I mean to like review this season, it's just been an absolute disaster, like from start to
yeah,
finish. Ferencvaros Varos in the Champions League. I mean,
yep,
we talk about the level of like Celtic to like the Premier League, how the gulf's higher, and like, even the gulf from SPL, other SPFL teams to Celtic and Rangers. But there's no way we should be losing that game, even if it's a
no,
one-off. And I know the like COVID and stuff's impacted every team, but it's not a really good excuse. It'd have been the same for them. So that started it off. Balling goalie going on a holiday during COVID.
mhm,
It's mental. Rangers at home, no shots on target. It's pretty bad. Get knocked out the League Cup from Ross County. 4-1 defeats home and away to Sparta Prague. Going to Dubai after we lose to Rangers during a
yeah,
global pandemic. Like the
no
list,
words.
it just goes on and on, mate. Like we could talk all day about how much a disaster it's been on all fronts from Celtic this season, and like not all of it's on Neil Lennon. Like
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of different people to take blame for how bad it's been, but like performance wise, we've been really substandard this season. So I think it was inevitable that he should have left, but again, probably sooner than at the start of March, end of February. It's just a weird time to do it.
yeah. You've nailed it there. Like, just so many different things went wrong, and I think the fact, Rangers, Lennon left 18 points behind Rangers. It is a weird time for it to happen now. I think a lot of fans wanted it to happen a lot sooner, but yeah, it is what it is, and he's gone now. So I guess you can look forward to Kennedy taking charge until the end of the season.
I mean, like, I like understand why Lennon stayed so long, like, and he
Yeah.
was like defiant by it because I mean, like, he probably more than anybody would have wanted to be the manager that won 10 in a row because like his
Hmm.
strong links to the club. Like he started it, got the first 3, 4 of them. Like you'd have wanted to finish it. So like I understand from like his point of view, like not wanting to go and while it's still like mathematically possible to to give it a chance. But like there's just been I don't even know how many good performances Celtic have had this season. Like all in it,
Hmm.
you could probably count them on one hand. It's been so subpar. Even at the start of the season, we're winning games away to St Johnstone, it took Lee
Yeah.
Griffiths and Klamala to come on. Dundee United, we got a late goal. So even when we were like neck and neck with Rangers getting into the first Old Firm game, we were still performing very poorly, but getting results. And then the Rangers game was just like a tipping point, I guess, for it, because then after that, the results just kind of reflected the team's performance. So yeah, it's just been, it should have been made by the board a lot sooner, I think, and not down to Neil Lennon to walk away or resign. I think the board should have realised a lot sooner that changes had to be made if they wanted to try and scrap anything from this season, but they didn't. And then, as we've said before, the timing right now is just really strange from the board.
Yeah, you touched on it there about like late goals. I remember seeing every week, it was like the likes of Griffiths, banging them in 90th minute
Mm-hmm.
plus. I know we've heard a lot in over recent years, like champions, they might play bad but still win. But I mean, it's kind of ugly winning. Man United were kind of famous for it in England under Ferguson, like, no matter what, they get the result in the end. So I mean, in that case, you can't really complain. But whenever it's happening every single week, I can understand the frustrations. And you talked about it there a lot about the board and the players and Lennon. So I mean, it's a tough question, but can you think, if is there one single body to blame for this, or is a group collectively to blame?
I think it's a little bit of everything. Like, again, Neil Lennon has to take blame for the performances. Like we talked about some of them there. I think he's also to blame in terms of like how many formations we actually try to play this season. I think
Yeah.
his heart was set on playing 3-5-2 when we brought in Shane Duffy to partner Chris Ayer and Julien.
Mm-hmm.
We brought in a Yeti, who again I think was we've seen. I don't think he can play as a lone striker. I think he was brought in to play with Edward. So,
Yeah.
but then we get injuries and stuff, and then we've chopped and changed. We've played 4-2-3-1, like 4-1-2-1, a diamond in midfield, and nothing's worked this season at all. Then again, there's got to be questions of Lennon to why David Turnbull and Sorrow, sorry, didn't start
Mm-hmm.
to like until it was really too late. So like Turnbull was a guy that we tried to get the season before and then we eventually got him. But why did it take so long?
Yeah.
Like I don't believe the whole like he wasn't fit. Like I don't really get that. He was with the squad for a long time. So he probably was up to match fitness, and then when he came on, he's been probably the one. Him and Sorrow have been the one like bright spark for Celtic this season. Um, his press conferences were embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like the Dubai thing, he came out and like defended the trip, which was
Yeah.
mental. That was a real turning point for me as well. Then and when we lost in the Champions League, he threw players under the bus for not wanting to be here, rather than taking like any sort of blame. I think that's one thing about him. I don't think he's ever come out and said at any point this season that he's partial to blame for how bad this seasons went. It's always down to like other factors.
Yeah.
Um, Players are obviously part of that. Performance wise, I still think like a lot of them have been a shadow of themselves this season. Like Edward, like Callum McGregor, Brown, they've all played to like a high standard for the last 3-4 seasons, and this season just something's went horribly wrong. So they're part to blame with Neil Lennon on that. But I think the board are probably most to blame from this season. Again, some like outrageous decisions have been made. Again, someone obviously sanctioned that Dubai trip.
Yeah.
I don't understand why. Then constantly backing Neil Lennon, coming out with there's going to be a January review. That never really happened. Something came out a couple of weeks ago, but they were saying it was ongoing. It just seemed like a pals act between Peter Lawwell, Dermot Desmond, and Neil Lennon. Like they're all pally. It just seemed something was off because like no other manager I think in Celtic's history would have survived the way Neil Lennon did for a long portion this
Yeah.
season.
Mm-hmm.
So that's obviously partly to blame, and then like I guess we don't have a plan. We didn't have a plan B. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of a manager, it happened when Brendan Rodgers left. There wasn't anybody in place to ever, in case that scenario came up, there was no other real candidates. And then they obviously had to turn to Neil Lennon after he just left Hibs. So the
Mm.
board's preparation for these kind of scenarios are not very good. And again, it's been shown now that it doesn't look as if anybody's going to be lined up until after the season. And then there's obviously a Euros to contend with if you're looking to get a manager that's playing there. So
Yeah.
it's just really poorly planned and just been, as I said, a disaster this season from every level at Celtic.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would just suggest, like you said, Lennon like didn't help himself with, interviews and press conferences and stuff like that, which is 100% correct. But I think it was difficult for someone to come in and replace Rodgers because of the job he did. Double treble, fans absolutely loved him. So I think it's a pretty rare situation in football where you like a manager actually leaves a club with his head held high. You know what I mean? It wasn't a sacking or he didn't leave and per terms. So
On that though, like Lennon came in as like the interim to just, and like the way it was getting said was like he's only here to just basically continue what the players were doing under Rodgers. That's why John Kennedy and stuff were there as well. So Lennon
mm,
came in that season, and like the performances weren't great there either. To be honest with you, like
yeah,
we scraped the league. We didn't scrape the league, but it was fairly comfortable. But the performance level had dipped, and then we scraped the cup as well. We got 2-1 past Hearts. That was
mm,
the right time for Lennon to be like, I came here to say what I was going to do, just steady the ship, got the treble done, and then he could have walked away there. But then it's obviously on him for then taking the job, but then the board offering him as well, because
yeah,
there's like many stories that many candidates applied for the job and they were just instantly put in the filing cabinet after the
mm,
um after the Scottish Cup win, and they just went with their heart and gave it to Neil Lennon. So
yeah.
like again, board to blame partly for that. So Lennon could have left, and it would have been a great time for him to leave then, I think. And I just think it was the wrong appointment at that time, and it's kind of come back to be proven right now.
Yeah, well, one thing I would just tell you is that according to my sources, Lennon actually has a higher win percentage than Rodgers in both his spells, first and second. His win percentage is something like 70, 71, 72. In between those numbers. I know Rodgers is maybe like 69, like 1% below, but
Mm-hmm.
just to get that in there in defense of Neil. But we'll move on because I think we've given him enough at the minute. So I think we talked about managerial decisions. I think we should definitely talk about players because in any case like this, there seems to be almost always a player overhaul in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so people have suggested it could be a huge summer for Celtic in terms of incomings and outgoings. As a journalist, I've written actually a lot of articles in recent months about players linked with moves away. I know it's all rumors at the minute, but you have Ayer strongly linked with Milan. You have Edouard. I've heard rumors for Arsenal, Crystal Palace, and the Prem. James Forrest to Leicester, linking up with Brendan Rodgers. Already lost Frimpong to Leverkusen, so it can happen. And even over the years, you've seen, I mean, Wanyama, Van Dijk, Stuart Armstrong, Kieran Tierney, go from Celtic to the Prem. So is this something you can see happening?
Yeah, like I think no matter what happened at the end of this season, whether Celtic done 10 in a row or not, I think there was always going to be a huge squad overhaul.
Mm-hmm.
Because like if we don't, like as the scenario is now, it's like 10 in a row's done. So like
Yeah.
what else have a lot of these players got to achieve here? They'll be looking at it from that point of view. They probably want to move down south or to another European country. So you're talking, you mentioned them like Eddie, Ayer, Christie, all these kind of
Mm-hmm.
players will probably be angling for that move. And then even if 10 in a row was done, then I still think there would have been a huge squad overhaul anyway. I
Yeah.
think it was always going next season was always going to be a big rebuilding job.
Mm-hmm.
So we mentioned those players like Scott Brown's out of contract. There's like 4 loan players in there that I don't assume will probably not sign any of them because it would depend who the manager is and if he wants to
Yeah.
bring in his own players. So, but then the performances this season are probably going to drastically impact the revenue Celtic will get for them. I think if Edward went last
Mm.
season, if Ayer went last season, we'd have got more money than we will get for them in the summer window. So that's obviously going to be a big hit for Celtic. On the loan signings, the only one I'd probably take is Elianusi. I know there's a lot of rumours that Southampton might let him go for 5 million. And like, I'd bite your hand off for that because he's only, what, 24, 25. He's
Yeah.
got so much potential. He's proven that he can do big things and big moments for Celtic. He done it in Europe. Even this season, I think he's our second highest goal scorer, and he's been in and out of the team all season. I think he's got a good physical ability about him, direct, and he can score goals. I think he's a really good winger. I think if 5 million came up, no matter who the manager was, I'd probably be trying to make that happen. So, like, players staying, I think it's important that we hold on to like Callum McGregor, David
Yeah.
Turnbull, Sorrell. I think that's a good three in midfield to have Sorrell sitting, McGregor and Turnbull either side of him. I think that's what we need to try to be basing the team on for the next 4 or 5 seasons, is these kind of guys. So holding on to them's really important. But we saw with Jeremy Frimpong, you said that he was only here for a season and a half, and we were raving about the potential that player had, and he's obviously moved on to Leverkusen. So there's no reason why, like Turnbull and Sorrow, who've only been here a short period of time, that they won't want to leave, especially if this kind of situation is going at Celtic. If it kind of keeps going on and that transpires into next season, then I wouldn't hold it against these players for wanting to move on either. So something drastically's got to change in the summer.
Yeah, 100%. I think it will. And, whatever manager comes in, as you said, he's going to have his ideas. But I think holding on to the likes of, Turnbull, Sorrow is going to be key. If he can get Unity in, it'll be massive.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're going to have to wait and see. But, hopefully they hold on to these players. But I think one good thing that has happened is lost Dembele a couple of years ago, replaced him with Edward,
Mm-hmm.
like that, things like that. And you're finding players like Turnbull. So, that's always a silver lining if there's at least something going right there in the board. I know we've given the board a bit of a bashing, but I mean, at least there's player recruitment maybe, and hopefully it can stay that way.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think just staying on the topic of positives and doing things right, I think it's only fair to also have a look at the things Neil Lennon did right.
Mm-hmm.
We've also given him a bit of abuse, but I think he's had a lot of great moments, and a fellow Northern Irishman, I'd like to give him a bit of support. I think he won like 40 caps or something for his country, captained them as well, and in what was a pretty tough time for him personally. Like he got a lot of abuse from his own fans, which should never be the case. Even also, I must say, he's a nice guy. Met him in Buchanan Street walking down in Glasgow, and he stopped for a nice selfie with me. So a nice guy, but yeah, just maybe some of your most positive memories from his time in charge.
I mean, you pointed out like he's had to endure a lot since like he moved to Celtic. You talked about Northern Ireland, and then even in his first spell, like death threats, bomb scares, like getting attacked at Hearts. Like the guy's endured a lot since he's been playing for Celtic or been involved in Celtic. So, and I said there's nobody can doubt that he's a proper Celtic man, if you want to use that term. Like he loves the club, and I'm sure he had the club's best interests at heart. But it's
Mm-hmm.
obviously just been a tough season. But from me, like we talked about it before we started recording, like I'm 24, so like Neil Lennon's been around and involved in Celtic for like the most of my time since I've been alive. I always remember
Yeah.
from growing up, like our early memories would be like Seville. He was there. He was a captain, and then obviously he came in as an interim boss. He got the job, then he got his second spell as well. So he's always been there since I
Mm-hmm.
can remember. He was the manager. We talked about me getting my season ticket. He was the manager when I first got my half-season book in 2010. He's the manager that I witnessed my first league title with when we won away at Kilmarnock. Great day out, great season. First win against Rangers. He was the manager for me, actually physically seeing it. We got to the last 16 of the Champions League. Lazio last season, both home and away. Probably the biggest one would be Barcelona 2-1 at Celtic Park. I mean, I was at the game, probably the best game I'll ever be at. Like, got the ticket and stuff you'll be telling your grandkids and everything about that day. So he's got to take a lot of credit for that. And then he stepped up when Brendan Rodgers left. Suddenly, he was the man that stepped up and took on that responsibility of trying to get us over the line in the league. And then we got the treble that season. And then he's got his own treble as well. So he's the only player and manager, I think, to have won the treble as a player and a manager at Celtic. So he's going to go down in history as one of the greats. As a player, as a manager, he's won a lot. He's achieved a lot. So he has to be commemorated for that and thanked for what he's done for Celtic over 20 plus years he's been involved there.
Yeah, 100%. Well said. And I think, fans have to remember, what he's been through, but what he's also given to the club. I know It's really easy to just, think right now because things are going so bad. It happens everywhere in football and in all sports, really. If a manager's under pressure, that's all fans think about. They think about the bad times, but you have to remember the good times. So
yeah, it's just saying, like, it's just raw emotion. What this season meant for everybody involved at Celtic. It's just so raw right now. And I know people are saying that it'll never be welcome at Celtic Park and stuff, but I just don't think that's true. Like, I think once, like, I've went in a few seasons, I know it's still going to be tough for a lot of people to accept what's happened, but as we pointed out, he's given so much to Celtic and he's got to be remembered for that, and hopefully he'll get a good welcome sometime in the future if he ever comes back to Celtic.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar with, likes of Tierney and Rodgers as well, who left, before 10 in a row and got a lot of stick for it, but I don't think I know any Celtic fan who can hate Tierney, especially after what he did, and Rodgers as well, of course, but just because Tierney was so loved. But another man coming in now for the rest of the season, Kennedy. I think he's from Bellshill, actually, just 10 minutes away from Celtic Park, I think. So that'll be an interesting one to see what happens. But now I think we'll move on to our countdown, which is, as you know, we do a top 3 countdown here in the Sports Countdown podcast. And for those who don't know, we like to, pick a topic of the week and ask our guest this week is Declan, but ask him for a countdown. So, perfect question, I think, is, who do you want to see come in and take charge?
I'm excited to give my opinion, but a little bit nervous.
Yeah,
about the feedback. We'll see, because I gave you and Larry a little bit of stick last week, so we'll see what you think of this. But obviously personal, so like I'm going to be going out there and trying to bring in these highly rated managers. So, but I think the way the board and the fans are right now, there's such a large distance and like disconnect between both. I think they have to bring somebody in that's going to excite the fans and renew season tickets and say we're looking forward to next season and we're going to have a top quality manager, and hopefully, and we'll try and again go for the league next season. But then being in Europe, something that's really big as well. So I think it's got to be somebody big, in my opinion. So like they did after Rangers won the Scottish Cup game in 2016, they go out and get Brendan Rodgers. So I see something similar happen this season. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Yeah. So any one of these 3 I'll be happy with. So at number 3, I want to go with Roberto Martinez and Sean Maloney as the compared to. So again, he's obviously managing the number 1 seed country in the world right now, Belgium. He's got the Euros. I think there's like 9 days between the Euros ending and Celtic's first qualifier for the Champions League. So that's not a lot of time, which makes it kind of tough to imagine this happening. But a boy can dream. I think they play like a great style of football, very attacking, very exciting. And he comes across, he does a lot of like punditry and stuff, but even in his interviews, he comes across as very knowledgeable in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he'd be kind of similar to Brendan Rodgers, that he'd pay attention to like specific like fine details in the game. He'd want to make everything perfect. He'd want all the players to know exactly what he expects for them and what he wants them to do on the field. So I
Yeah.
think that would be a huge boost for Celtic if they could make that happen. And if he comes in with Sean Maloney, obviously a player for
Yeah.
Celtic, and he coached a little bit before he went to Belgium, so that would be a good pairing for me. Again, it's just
Yeah.
whether he'll, even after the Euros, if he'll leave Belgium. But some managers like to get back into like the full time situations as a manager, as a club manager. So I think it'd be an exciting project for any manager really. It's going to just be a huge rebuild, so I think it could tempt him. Hopefully,
Yeah.
um,
We'll see.
we'll soon see. Yeah. Number two, I've got Jesse March, the American that's at Red Bull Salzburg. I think another guy that when you watch his team play, that they're very exciting. They've got you on the edge of their seat. I think they played Liverpool last year in the Champions League under them. I think it was 4-3 it finished up, but they kind of went toe to toe with him. Like, he doesn't really hold back too much. It's very attacking, a very attack minded philosophy, which if you classify something as like a Celtic way to play, it's always wanting to be on the front foot, always wanting to be attacking. So I think his kind of style would fit in with Celtic. I looked at he's got a 65% win record at Salzburg, and they've got 146 plus goal difference, and he's only been there for 79 games. So they scored a
Wow.
lot of goals. Very exciting. That'd be an interesting appointment. I think that would bring a lot of excitement back into the Celtic team, especially with the attacking threat and talent that we've got in the squad. I think it could work.
Mm-hmm.
But and then like realistically, I could see maybe him making a move from Salzburg to Celtic, maybe more realistic than
Martinez.
Martinez leaving, but
Yeah.
maybe not, because I mean Salzburg have got a pretty solid foundation. I think that's the way Celtic need to go, is to be like Salzburg, like Ajax, that kind of model, where they bring
Mm-hmm.
through these young players, develop them, and then they can move on for a bigger fee. So
Yeah.
he fits the bill for me in the way that I think we should be run and the way that we want to be run in the future.
Mm.
Number
Fair.
one, about sorry, before that, even like Marco Rose was one that, like, when his Salzburg team played Celtic a few years back, they played us off the park twice.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought that would have been a good move after Rodgers left, but we missed out on him. And then we see Marco Rose now is going to be the Borussia Dortmund manager. So
Mm.
obviously a highly sought after manager. I think that was something that we possibly could have missed out on. So Jesse March is kind of like similar, same team really. So it'd be interesting
Mm-hmm.
if we could try and make something happen there. Um, number
Interesting.
one, number one's not going to surprise anybody probably. Eddie Howe, I think he's the standout
Yeah.
candidate. Worked wonders with Bournemouth, I think, on a relatively tight budget for like English Premier League standards. So he can get the best of players, or he knows a player that he can get in maybe on the cheap, which is what
Mm-hmm.
Celtic would be doing, the way they've done with like Dembele, these kind of players. I think he could fit in and do something similar to what Rodgers did. Again, exciting attacking football, the same as the other two. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and again, unlike most like Premier League teams with like a smaller team, again he kind of try to go toe to toe. I think keep stuck to his ideas, or the way he wanted to play the game, even when he was up against Liverpool, Man City, Man United. I think he always stuck to that, and I think that's
Yeah.
a good thing, that he won't change or try and be too. You can change tactics, but not be too negative and not change the complete philosophy or style of the way he play. So I commend him for that. He's obviously a free agent as well right now, but
Yeah.
how long is he going to be out a job? I wouldn't imagine too much longer, because he's a really good manager, young manager. So I think if we would need to act fairly soon if we wanted to make him our manager. So that's my top three. Anyway, a lot of good names in there, I think. So any one of those, I'd be absolutely delighted. But we'll see what happens, eh?
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. Like, I mean, it's gonna be a a painful couple of months for you, I think, for all Celtic fans, because you know how it is. Like, there's going to be rumor after rumor. Every single manager that is available that's going to be linked with Celtic. So, I think all Scottish football is going to be excited to hear who they bring in, and you especially. So, wish you all the best for that. And I'm sure one thing is that you were just glad to get. I think we could have talked about this all day, to be fair, but I think you're glad to get that all off your chest right now.
Spot on, yeah. And like, I don't see why Celtic shouldn't be aiming high for these managers either. It's like, what's the worst thing that could happen? They say no, and then you just move on. So like, I wouldn't hold back on trying to be ambitious, or maybe you think, oh, this is never going to happen. But I think like, go for it. The worst thing is like Eddie Howe says no, Martinez says no, they all say no, then you move on from it. So there's no harm in just putting yourself out there, I think, anyway. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a tough few months, as you said. Obviously, obviously Rangers are going to win the league, which they fully deserve. But it's going to be tough for Celtic fans, but hopefully something exciting happens, either with like a director of football, or we get excited about the new manager coming in. So a lot of positives to think about coming into next season, but obviously going to be tough for the last 8 games.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for the honesty, all the honest opinions. I'm sure that wasn't easy. But, thanks for that. And thanks so much for everybody who's listening and watching, wherever you are. We really appreciate it, all the support. So, yeah, if you're interested, just keep it up. Give us a like, follow, the deal on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're all over there. So really appreciate it. Thanks so much. And we'll be back next week for more.